Number one, we're going to hire a full-time church planting catalyst. For several years, we have been looking to fill this position as a part-time, very limited part-time position with no success. However, now that God has provided the resources that I just mentioned, it's time to step into that and really put a focus on church planting. And so we're going to expand this role into a full-time church planting catalyst to help identify needs in the community, recruit church planters from within the community as well as outside, identify sending churches within our network, and invest fully in the task of seeing new work begun in our area.
Greetings, West Metro churches. I'm very excited to get to introduce to you today Marty Guy. Marty is the man that we, myself and the administration team, believe God has led us to fill the role of church planting catalyst in the West Metro Association. I am so excited for you to get to hear from him and to get to know him, and I believe God is going to do great things through him and our partnership together as we seek to reach people within the West Metro area that have not yet been reached with the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I grew up here in Douglasville, and I was at Beulah Baptist Church most of my young life, and then actually at Beulah at a youth group event. My wife and I met, and we were high school sweethearts. We dated and got married in 1996, so it was a long time ago. And since then, though, we've had 2 boys and 2 girls. That was our children. 2 boys were both born in America, and 2 of our daughters, one was born in Asia, the other one in Africa. So we've kind of got a worldwide, family that's been brought together. We grew up, and God called me into ministry when I was in about 7th grade as part of a youth group event, and then began to go to college at Atlanta Christian College, now Point University. Graduated there and was working as family pastor at Victory Baptist Church when God called us to go to seminary, and we went up to Southeastern Seminary in Wake Forest, North Carolina. And while we were there, God began to just work in our hearts to give us a burden for the nations and a burden for church planting. And so we switched degree programs and eventually moved to Southeast Asia, where we spent 14 years living among the Hmong people, which are spread out over about 5 different countries in Southeast Asia, 2 million people, and worked as a church planting catalyst there, where we would see local pastors and local people begin to reach their own people. And we would stand in the shadows a little bit and kind of coach and mentor them as they did that. And about 2 years ago, we began to realize that our boys were getting ready to transition into college and our parents were getting older. And so we transitioned back here to Douglasville and the West Metro area to kind of put down some roots to get our kids established here, to take care of our parents as they were getting older. So for our hearts have always been throughout, like I said, the last 15 to 20 years about taking the gospel where the gospel is not. Paul talks about when he writes to the Romans that he wants to go to Spain. He's reached the Mediterranean world and he wants to go to Spain because that's where the gospel's not made it yet. The kingdom's not come to Spain yet. But at the same time, when he's writing to the Romans, his heart was burdened for Jerusalem, where the gospel first started, where, it wasn't necessarily his hometown, but where he had grew up going to sit at the feet of Gamaliel and going back to Jerusalem, as his heart was also torn to go to Spain. And this is kind of the best of both worlds for us. We can be here in Douglasville, where we grew up, close to our parents, work with churches we've known our whole lives, kind of our Jerusalem, but then also work in church planting and taking the gospel where the gospel is not, where the church hasn't gone yet. So also working as a church planting catalyst right here in our hometown in West Metro is almost the best of all possible worlds for us. So it's exciting to be able to take the next steps and look at where our churches aren't going yet because we are doing our Jerusalem work, but then also still heading to that next stage in the kingdom as well. One is to pray for, my family as we're transitioning, my wife, just in terms of logistics of, all right, Dad's going to be gone on Sundays doing mobilization. In the evenings, we'll be hosting different families that are involved in our ministry. So pray for our family as we're transitioning into a new ministry. Pray for me as I begin to interact with West Metro churches. Some of those churches I've known my whole life, others I really don't know that well. So pray for relationships to be built. Pray for us as we try to figure out a strategy. And where do we start with 51 churches spread out over 3 counties of West Cobb, Douglas, and East Paulding County? That's a large geographical area, a large cultural spectrum of those counties, and try to figure out strategic priorities. Help us to think through, pray that we can figure out ways to train local pastors to reach the unreached in terms of how do we find church planters to work in those areas. So training, and then finally pray for us as we help to encourage those who are already involved in church planting in this area.